Nicodemus here. How do we practically apply everything that we are discussing on this podcast?
I think there needs to be a foundational or base come from that we need to establish first. Because what you're asking is, how do we practically apply this every day in our life? Obviously we want to live it. That's the goal. We don't want it to just be a concept. Like, it's cool ideas where we could talk about cool stuff. And if you are sitting here talking about this and we're constantly getting in conflicts in our life, constantly fighting and things like that, all this talk really doesn't matter in the end. It's the application, the experience that we're really after. Because concepts don't matter in the end. I mean, yeah, they're cool maybe for a dinner party, and you can look a certain way to the world, but we want the experience. We know based on the results of our life. Like, if I have peace in my life and in my relationships, then I'm listening to the right teacher. If I have conflict in my life and relationships, I'm listening to the wrong teacher. It's really simple. One of the things the Course says is that you need to fire yourself as your own teacher. It actually says you who've learned to miss should not be your own teacher. So you and I taught ourselves a nightmare curriculum, and we've tried to convince ourselves it was true. Like, there's an old saying in, is it NA, your best thinking got you here? So that means if you leave it up to me, I'm going to go off the rails. If my best thinking got me to like addiction or darkness, rock bottom, if that's my best strategy, which if you're honest, you're going to see like people who are suffering a lot in their life, like it's a certain arrogance, because actually what the Course says is our arrogance, because it's arrogant not to step into the role that God created us as, that you think you can make up another role and try to get peace and sanity and fulfillment from it. That's insanity, but it's also arrogance. The humility is, what is the role that God assigned to me? That one of the lines in the Course is, I am as God created me. So I was created as an extension of the Creator. And in that role, I was created to be the light. That's not up for question. Because literally the Spirit is the light. It's the light of consciousness. That's a whole other, we'll do another podcast on that one. It's a whole other conversation. But going in terms of the practical application of it, we need to start with, I'm resigning as my own teacher. So what does that mean? It doesn't mean I'm your teacher or somebody listening to the podcast, or no, not like that. Or even, I found this really great teacher on YouTube, or I read this book and that's my teacher, or this is people can have all kinds of teachers like that. That's fine. But the teacher, capital T teacher, there's only one, and it's the Holy Spirit. Nizar Gadada in India would say, like, the greatest guru is one's own self, but not like self like you, like capital S self, which the Course uses terminology like that as well, is he walks you to the goal, for he is or she is the goal. Like your higher self, it is the goal, right? Confide in that, and then no outer guru or teacher is necessary. Now, they still may show up. It doesn't mean that, we don't have teachers and forum and things like that. And if we resonate with a teacher or something like that, we could follow that. What we're saying is that there is an internal connection to God that is the Holy Spirit. It's the voice for God. And how to practically apply it is, actually, this is great that the Course makes this distinction between God and the Holy Spirit. Let's put it in. We'll go further into it, but just something simply is that the Holy Spirit is in you in a very literal sense. The Holy Spirit is in you in your thoughts, in your emotions, like your heart. It's that voice, that's the communication that it's never cut off from that communication. Okay. The Course says God is not in you in a literal sense. You are in God. We are a part of God. That's a different understanding. So there is God, and this is all, we're using words again. But the practical application is the understanding that the voice for God, God has given me the teacher, which is, let's call it like a speck of God in my mind. Right? I'm using words and we're doing our best. But the premise of this might sound at first to someone like, well, that's ethereal when you talk about practical application. But the practical application needs to start with developing communication with the Holy Spirit. There's no other, like that is because in that, how can you are at such an advantage on your journey because the Holy Spirit is using all of time. You and I have such a limited, I mean, like I can't even see past this moment. And my memory of the past is so iffy anyway that I remember a past that didn't even occur. So if you're going to leave it up to me, like I'm basing it on really, I mean, our brains are literally omitting 99.99999. It's 99% of reality. Think about that. You're going to leave it up to me. I don't even know what anything is. Of course I would mess it up. To see that humility though, I think life is super humbling. And if we don't start to learn this lesson in our daily life every day, a teacher I heard say this once, is life could be a really tough teacher. Like first you get tapped on the shoulder, then you get punched in the arm, then you get slapped over the face, then you get a 2x4 to the head. Like it starts to hurt more. That was my experience. Or maybe we developed the sensitivity, like I'm just tired of suffering. So the practical application is I'm firing myself as my own teacher. Now I have to learn so completely of the Holy Spirit. And what that looks like is the only way that you know is by the results. I can tell is because if it feels like love and connection, forgiveness, if I follow that call, that path, more and more that'll show up in my life. If it's not showing up in my life, I'm listening to the wrong teacher. I'm caught up in my judgments about the situation of how I think it should be. But if one of the earlier lessons is I do not perceive my own best interest, I need to be taught what is in my own best interest. So that means in every situation, I don't even know what to do. So now the question becomes, is how good of a listener are you? Now, I'll tell you what, I might get to a place, I'm just saying this for myself, because I might get to a place where I'm like, I really suck at decision making. I deep down, like I made a hell for myself. Like I've experienced enough of hell in this lifetime. That's why when I talk to people, I'm like, I don't need you to tell me about it. Like I know it. I've knew about a lot of these teachers since I was young. So it's not like I conceptually knew it. And let me tell you, how many hells I've lived through since even studying these teachings and the course and all that. Plenty. Not many anymore, really, ever. But even if it does like come, it's quickly like just seen as, nope, that's not it, and choose again. But that's because of years and decades of like learning to choose again and applying it to what he says in the course is like you generalize the miracle to all situations. So everyone that comes up is like, that there's just a miracle here. Oh, God, what am I extending? What's win-win or love? What does love look like? I might still have boundaries and all of that in the world and navigating, but the Holy Spirit is leading very specifically. So now every situation, whenever we don't really know what to do, we need to ask. So the practical application is stopping and asking. So when you're not at peace, it's really simple. Like he has this in the course, like, he says decisions cannot be difficult. It's really simple. Like if you're not at peace, you must have somewhere decided to not be at peace. You made the decision yourself and you could decide otherwise. Now you decide like, I want to be at peace. I'm just going to return my thinking to the point at which the error was made. I'm going to hand it over to the Holy Spirit. It's like, I'm not going to feel guilty about it because the Holy Spirit will correct all the errors of my wrong decision if I will let the Holy Spirit do it. I choose to let the Holy Spirit do it by allowing him to choose God for me. It's literally like simple as that. In any situation that arises that's something other than peace, and you know it because you feel it, it's really simple. I mean, I know when I throw this out to people, they could almost get overwhelmed at the possibility, but just like lifting weights or exercise, if you start small, it just gets easier and easier. That anytime there's an appearance of something that disturbs our peace, it's always the same fundamental error of forgetting we're connected to God, and the miracle and the shift. Let's call it the shift. The extension out is the miracle. We talked about that, combining those two distinctions we talked about on a previous podcast. But if we can just see that every appearance that tries to convince us that we're separate from God, we use it to go, oh, wait, hold on. All I need to do is remember God. If I do that, the situation and the appearance will always take care of itself. It without fail. I'm telling you, I've applied it to every single, in my mind, like opportunity that I needed to for it to be proven that it works. No matter how crazy the situation, there's this, like, if you trust this process, there is a surrender that happens. And then over time, I've noticed it gets faster and faster. And in some ways, almost easier and easier because you stop getting fooled by the appearances. In India, they'd call it like the Maya, the illusion. It's so tempting. It's always tempting you to forget and be like, no, look, this is so scary, this one. No, it's all going to fall apart with this one. No. He was like, trust me, this time it's all going to fall apart. And you're like, you start to be like, I don't think so. Nah, actually, it's never going to fall apart. Actually, it never has fallen apart. It's always going to be together forever. When you start to understand that, less and less do you get sold and lost on the, oh, it's going to fall apart this time. It's like you stop getting robbed. But the prerequisite is the willingness. The Course says all we need is a little tiny bit of willingness, and the Holy Spirit does everything else. Actually, it says, this is a line of the Course, which is so great. You know, one of the things that pisses us off is our part is so small and the Holy Spirit's part is so big. It pisses us off because we want our part to be so big and the Holy Spirit's part to be so small. That's what everybody's trying to do. Like, I can tell when people are like general manager of their life in the universe, they just are always miserable. Like, I'm always happy because I'm not running the show. Like, it's really stressful to run the show. And if I ever find myself the tinge of the tiniest bit stressed, there are no small upsets. All upsets are equally disturbing to my peace of mind. So if I find myself a little tinge of frustrated, that means I've now put myself back in the driver's seat. And listen, we have to do all kinds of stuff. So people, go to work, you pay bills, pay taxes, all whatever it is. But all that stuff doesn't really matter because what we're talking about is in your thoughts. And if we can just learn more and more to surrender in our thoughts to the teaching of the Holy Spirit and have a little bit of willingness in every situation, like, show me peace. I don't know what it looks like. You have to understand, when I started these, like, specifically the studying and doing lessons every day and diving deep into the Course, my life had fallen apart at that time. So it was about the practical applications every day. That's where the rubber meets the road. And over time, you start to see that it gets easier and easier. And then for me, my experience now is I just think like that. Like, my thoughts are always, if a thought like that comes of anything that's other than peace, joy, freedom, abundance, love, another thought corrects it. It's like, oh, no. Remember this? Oh, yeah. It's like that. And I just more and more get enrolled in what the Course teaches and what really ultimately the Holy Spirit's teaching, because Jesus woke up to the teaching of the Holy Spirit. The Christ is the extension of the Creator. And when we wake up to that, it's about applying it every day. That's how we wake up to it ultimately. So we're learning to wake up to the Holy Spirit's teaching. As simple as that. That's the practical application. So we start with anything that disturbs our peace. The slightest tinge, we then correction is needed in our thoughts. And we apply what we're talking about. I like to give it over to the Holy Spirit. Please show me only peace, and then start to learn and listen to where you're being navigated for peace. And you'll be guided really specifically. It's that simple.